The musician Prince, one of the most inventive music makers of his era, has died at his home in Minneapolis. He was 57 and had been struggling with illness for a while. Well, with us now is our arts editor, Will Gompertz. And Will, I mean, this is a terrible shock.
I should say. I mean, it's extraordinary. The whole this year is turning out to be an annus horribilis for artists. And to lose Prince, as you say, just 57, such a vivacious character, such a brilliant innovator, such a great creative spirit is truly shocking. It's people. I mean, I sent out a tweet and people immediately saying, you know, they can't really account for it. They can't make sense of it. He's so young. People didn't really know he'd been poorly, although his agent did say that a plane had to be curtailed. Plane flight had to be curtailed recently because he was unwell. But he created the most amazing music. He was an extraordinarily clever man, a great entertainer. But his great albums, 1999, Purple Rain, Sign of the Times, all beautifully sugar-coated, but all of them were telling stories of darkness, of the shadier side of the 80s. So, like I suppose all great artists, he was able to mix the light and the shade. But he was just so prolific as well that, you know, they say at Paisley Park there's a whole storage centre of music which has never been released by Prince. But if there's anything about Prince that made him stand out, he was the most extraordinary live performer. I would say, Rebecca, the best live performer I've ever seen. That he controlled the house. It didn't matter if it was a 20,000-seat arena or a private gig in a small pub, which is what he liked to do, just pop up surprising people. He just captured you, and you were with him all the way, with his energy, his wit, his ideas, his songs, his rhythms. Amazing.
That's no mean feat, given he was only 5'2".
Well, that was part of it, I think. I mean, that was part of his shtick, that his enormous character, in a way, because he was quite a shy man. He didn't do huge amounts of publicity. He actually was quite a private guy. That his big persona and his act, his stage act, which was, you know, epic and cinematic in scale, was part of his own personal stature.
He wrote, he composed, he produced most of his music, he played most of his instruments. I mean, this gives us a sense of the kind of musician he was.
Well, he was a total musician, and he was, to a certain extent, also a control freak. That he wanted every single detail. He had his own studio at Paisley Park. He mixed a lot of his own music. He made sure when certain works went out at certain times that each record was an act of curation. He then made movies about the records. You know, Purple Rain, great movie. Sign of the Times, great movie. And his ability to innovate, to not get stuck in a rut. So many musicians, when they had the sort of success that Prince had in the 80s, would get stuck. But he just cracked on. He worked with a whole series of different people. You know, remember he worked with Sheena Easton back in the day. And he just had an intense curiosity for life, which he then communicated to the world through his music.
You mentioned about how he encapsulated the 80s in many ways, and when I think of his lyrics, I think of quite sexual lyrics and religious ones as well.
Yes. I mean, he was saucy.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he was sexy. I mean, he was designing music to be danced to be in clubs to make love to have fun with. You know, he was vivacious. You know, he mixed soul and disco and rock and glam and put it all together in this massive package of beautiful music.
Let's pause just for a moment, Will, and listen to some of Prince's music now. In some ways, he's just done our job for us, hasn't he? Encapsulating all the things you've been talking about, Will. This is a shot now live from Minneapolis, outside Prince's recording studios, where the news has broken within the last hour that he died. He died at his home in Minnesota. His publicist has said he'd been suffering from ill health and had to cancel 2 recent concerts. We know that his private jet had been forced to make an emergency landing last Saturday because of his condition. That may be somebody who will be talking to us in a short while, perhaps. His staff had said he had a bad bout of flu. Prince sprang to international fame in the early 80s, and our arts editor, Will Gompertz, is here. And I suppose it's his contribution to music, Will. I mean, somebody said to me just a few moments ago. How does he compare, say, to a musician like David Bowie in terms of the contribution?
Well, he follows a direct lineage.
Yes.
And obviously David Bowie was a massive influence on Prince. But Prince is funkier, to be honest. I mean, we just heard a blast of his music there. And he was bringing that African-American historical sense of music from jazz, rhythm and blues, soul, funk. He packaged the whole lot up and he called it this, he had this new this new wave feel to it, this new romantic feel to it. So you don't forget that on one hand you had Duran Duran and Spandau Ballet, who were fine. And then you had Prince coming along, who was playing at a completely different level. And it's quite interesting. It was at a moment when David Bowie himself was having a creative dip. And Prince, in a way, took that role, I would say, as the world's greatest living rock star.
Stay with us, Will. I'm going to bring in now our correspondent Peter Bowes, who's in Los Angeles. Peter, this news just breaking within the last hour. What more can you tell us?
Well, we're still really waiting to find the details. We know that Prince passed away at his home. The authorities have not elaborated on the circumstances, but we do know, as you've been hearing from his publicist, that he had been ill recently. He'd been suffering from flu. His plane had to make an emergency landing. He was taken to hospital. He wasn't in hospital very long. He was released after a few hours and went home. But clearly, at least in very recent history, he had been in ill health. As to anything more serious than flu, we simply weren't aware of it. So there's a lot more we will hopefully find out about this. But that aside, the shock is palpable, and that's reflected here in Los Angeles, in Hollywood, and of course Prince was a major player not only in the music industry but in Hollywood as well.